So Nathaniel probably easily hold down the title of the most active pro in NEF for a couple of years now. Well, I guess, since last year. Incredible run of activity, winning, looking more and more dominant with each win, main eventing tomorrow night, sold out crowd at Aura, environment you're very familiar with. Talk a bit about what you're feeling leading into this one, what it's been like in terms of camp, and what you expect out of your main event tomorrow night against Robert Lustig.
Yeah, man, I feel great. This is the best camp I've had. Easy weight cut, too, a great weight cut. Technique-wise, this is the best I felt. I'm expecting a great fight. I can't wait to fight in front of a sold-out crowd against a tough opponent. I think he's going to bring it for 15 minutes, and I know I will, so I think it's going to be a great fight for the fans and for fight fans as well.
I always love talking about your work ethic, Nathaniel. You're known across the board, I think. I've never spoken with anyone who doesn't talk about how consistent you are, whether you have a fight scheduled or not. It's been incredible. And I know you're not just like that in terms of your athletic training, you're like that in your personal life as well with your work ethic. Where does that come from? I know you said your parents have been huge influences on you. Could you talk a bit about how that was ingrained in you and how it's helped to lead to all the success you've experienced?
Yeah, my dad always, growing up, he was always a big work ethic. If it's chopping wood or whatever, coming home late from his work, he's always been a big influence on my life, and he still always will be. But I think that's why he just raised me to be kind of a workhorse, and this is what I want to do for a career. This is my dream and my goal. So if I want to chase after that dream, I have to put in the work in the off season. And that off season is just a few weeks between each camp right now. So that's where they say champions are made in the off season. So I have to put in that work to get better every camp. And before even camp starts, I'm coming into camp in shape. So I can really focus down on the technique. I'm not worrying about getting in shape or getting the diet right. It's just, this is fight camp, and now it's tomorrow all the sacrifices pay off.
And you know a thing or two about championships. You were a state champion wrestler. You've been an amateur champion. You wrestled at USM 4 years in college. How much do you think your wrestling is going to come into play in this fight tomorrow? You've seen some footage of Robert at this point. Fought a name we're all familiar with, Mo Al-Kanani, in his last fight. How much do you think that's going to play a role in the outcome?
It's crazy, if you know about fights, you know that you can never predict it. So I think the wrestling, it will always be there in my back pocket if I want there. I really want to showcase my striking, but it's also not a boxing match. It's an MMA fight, so I'm going to mix it up to get the takedowns. We'll see. Wrestling's tiring. A lot of people can't do it for 15 minutes, and I've really prided myself in my cardio this fight. So we'll see if he can handle the pace for 15 minutes of wrestling, and if he can't, then it might be quick work.
Again, we talked about at the beginning of this interview how active you've been, how you've always been active as an amateur, now as a pro. We've heard you mention the name Jacob Detmeyer as somebody that potentially could be in your crosshairs at some point, maybe for a championship down the line. What are your thoughts on the rest of the year? What's the, assuming a positive outcome for you tomorrow night, what would you like to see for the rest of the year? If
everything goes as planned and it works out tomorrow night, I'll call out Detmeyer for September, and then we get one title defense at the end of the year. And now I'm looking at a solid pro record to get a few more smart fights and then looking at that next level.
And last thing I really do want to ask, Nathaniel, what your advice is to up-and-coming guys. I mean, you're a guy who I see that's always downloading knowledge. You're always asking questions. You're always seeking out other people's opinions. You're always reading. I mean, I see you just constantly increasing your MMA knowledge. What's your advice to guys that are coming up that want to be amateur champions, that want to make it to the pro ranks? Kind of what advice would you give to them?
Keep the white belt mentality. It's there's a lot that goes into MMA. It's not just, it's a sport, but you have boxing, you have Muay Thai, you have Jiu-Jitsu, you have wrestling. You have a lot that goes in MMA, and each one of those is a sport, so you have to be very knowledgeable in each one of those sports to put it together for MMA. So keeping that white belt mentality, always having an open mind to anything people tell you, and just work hard. Consistency will make improvements, and that's where you get that greatness and you can perform great.